Today I'm smoking St. Louis ribs. Last summer we purchased an offset smoker. After my first smoke, it became very apparent to me that smoking on an offset smoker is totally different than cooking on a charcoal or propane grill. My cousin Linda and her husband Gail came over that day. We had a grand old time watching my new smoker just puff out smoke all over the place. It wasn't supposed to happen like that. My maiden smoke, as they call it in the smoking world, I smoked baby back ribs and beef sausage, and I thought to myself, this should be easy enough, right? No, it wasn't. It was an absolute disaster. So I fired up my new smoker and thought everything was going well. I didn't realize the smoker would not come up to the proper temperature because there was too much smoke escaping from different spots. To make a long story short, my new smoker never did come up to the temperature to properly smoke anything. I remember taking my first bite of my rib, and although it looked fine on the outside, it was totally pink and red on the inside. Creeped me out. I went online to see if I could find any reviews on my new smoker. I was surprised to find so many people that had purchased that same smoker and was having the exact same problems I was having. After watching 10 or 15 YouTube channels, and they were talking about the modifications they made to this particular model, I knew we had to do something. Jerry and I made a few modifications, and a couple of days later I fired up my smoker to see if it made a difference. We watched, and there were a few spots where the smoke continued to escape. And finally Jerry said in frustration, "Babe, we need a welder." So I put out an SOS on my Facebook page to everyone I knew and said I was looking for a welder. I knew some modifications needed to be done to my new smoker immediately. Thank God my friend from church, Steve Keene, came to our rescue. Jerry and I took our smoker over to Steve's house. I fired it up so Steve could see where he needed to make the welding modifications. He kept our smoker for a week. When we got it back home, I fired it up, and I was jumping for joy because the only place where I could see smoke coming out of was the chimney. Steve Keene had totally rocked out my smoker. Now it smokes everything to perfection. In this pan I prepared 7 slabs of St. Louis ribs. The first thing I did was I took the silver skin or the membrane off the bone side of the ribs. Removing that silver skin is really a personal preference. Some people like to leave it on because they say it holds the ribs together. I personally like to remove that silver skin because I don't like that chewy, tasteless skin on my ribs. I trimmed off some of the excess fat. Leaving some of the fat on the ribs is a good thing. The fat will melt into the ribs and it will moisturize the meat. Fat equals flavor. Everybody knows that. Now, I trimmed off the top part of my ribs. This piece is called the rib tips, which is right about here. They're meaty little bundles of goodness, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to marinate them overnight in a Chinese 5-spice marinating sauce. Then I'm going to sear them on my grill for a few minutes on each side. Then I'm going to roast them in the oven low and slow for about an hour and a half or so, and they're tender and delicious. All they need is some spicy dipping sauce. I will show you what I'm going to do with the extra pieces of meat and the bones. The bones I'm going to make pork broth out of, and the meat I'll show you in a bit. Now let's get started trimming my last slab of St. Louis ribs. Okay, I have finished trimming all of my ribs, and from 8 slabs of ribs I ended up with about 6 or 7 pounds of rib tips. The bones that came off the very top right about here, I trimmed the meat off of there, and that's what I'm going to use for my pork broth. And I put the date on here so I know what date that how long these have been in my freezer. And then with the extra meat that came off of the top part of the rib here, I bagged it individually. And this meat I will make pork sautés with. I did a video on that earlier, a couple of videos back. Or you can make pork stir fry with it, or pork skewers, whatever your heart desires.
Ms. Rose, what are you doing?
I'm adding some onion rings. I got some peppercorns in here. And this is apple cider and half water. And this is going to be my water pan underneath my ribs. This is going to catch all that grease dripping from the ribs as you're smoking. Plus it's going to keep moisture within my smoker.
So what are you doing now, Ms. Rose?
Just lining the bottom of my pit. This will help me with my cleanup after this is all over with. And after 5 hours smoke, it's going to be a lot of grease and stuff down in there. So I like to just give myself a little help along the way. So put that underneath my racks, and that catches all the stuff I don't want to have to clean up later. I'm waiting for my coals to heat up. This is the time that you spend preparing your grill for smoke. Water pan goes in. Yep. Okay. My racks in. Get those ready. Oh, wrong rack. There's a rack. I'm going to prepare a thermometer that I'm going to use for the inside of my smoker so I can keep an eye on the internal temperature. Yeah, and the reason why I use my internal thermometer, because this one that came on the smoker doesn't work worth a flip. I've determined that, I found out when I was smoking, at the very beginning, this thing runs probably about 50 or 60 degrees difference than what the actual temperature is, which makes a huge difference when you're smoking meat. Yeah, and I just put it in there just like this. I have the temperature set for 250, and once it starts smoking, I can keep up with what the temperature is. Looks like my coals are ready, so I'm going to be firing the hole. Which I should be doing this with gloves on, but I'm going to wing it. Oh yeah.
Is your wood wet or dry?
It's dry. Earlier I talked about the modifications. Before, when I fired this thing up, I had smoke coming out here, here, all around here, all around here. The handle used to be here. Smoke was coming out of there, here, 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 on the back of the chimney. As you can see, there's only smoke coming out of the chimney. My temperature now is running around 235, 234. Now it's time for me to put my meat on, get started. Okay, as you can see, I have my temperature set for 250. My current heat is now 275. I'm not going to worry about that because when I open the door, I'm going to lose a lot of my heat, but it will recover quickly. So that's no big deal. Now, I'm going to try to get, I got 6 slabs here, which I'm going to try to get on all at once. It's going to be a squeeze, but I can do it. Going to the end here. And I'm going to put the large end closest to the fire because I don't want my small end to char or cook too fast. I'm going to overlap it because I have so many slabs here. But I'm not worried about that because about halfway through my smoking process, I'm going to switch everything around so everything will get a nice, even, righteous smoke. Two more slabs. What do you think, Mr. Moore? You think I can get them on there?
I don't know, Ms. Rose. Look like it. Oh,
Watch this.
I think you'll be able to do it now.
That girl got skills. This is my rib rack that I came up with. This thing here is the rack for my pizza stone. And I thought, okay, this will work. Look, lay 2
Beautiful.
right here. Check that out. Okay, I have successfully gotten 6 slabs of ribs on my smoker. Patch down, lock in place. Okay, now you see my temperature drop from 279 to 133, but see how quickly it's recovering? Okay, I have some breathing time now. Everything is on the smoker, and now it's time for me to talk about the method of smoking. When I first bought this smoker, like I was telling you earlier, I had no idea what all it took to smoke properly. And I went on the internet and I started searching around for smoking forums to try to get in on a conversation or in a chat room with other people that are smoking. So I ran across this one website called smokingmeatsforum.com, and I'm telling you, it is the best out there. I've met some really great people, and they've given me all kinds of great information, and they share recipes, they share stories, and it's just been amazing. So today I'm using a method called the 3-2-1 method. This is a great way to smoke ribs, and they always turn out perfectly. Currently I'm running my smoker at about 239 degrees. I like to run my smoker anywhere from 225 to 250 degrees for the best results. Now, the 3 part of this method stands for 3 hours, or the amount of time I will be smoking my ribs. During this time, I added my wood. Today I'm smoking with pecan and hickory wood, and you ought to smell my patio. It smells absolutely divine. So what I just did, I shifted all the ribs that were on the bottom, and now they're on the top rack. So that way all my slabs of ribs can get the same amount of smoke loving. And now I am breaking every rule in the smoker's handbook about opening up the lid, because most smokers say that if you're looking, you ain't cooking. So I obviously ain't cooking right now, but I had to shift everything around. Ordinarily, you wouldn't do this, but being as I have so many ribs in here, and I just wanted to make sure everything was smoked evenly. So there it is. I'm closing it back up, and I won't be looking. This is the 3 part of my 3-2-1 process. In this pot over here, that's my foiling juice, and you ought to smell it. It smells amazing. Now this is when the magic starts, because this foiling juice is going to get slathered on these ribs, and that's my timer going off in the background. So I'm going to get to wrapping, and I'll show you the process here in a second. Slather the meat side first. Flipping over. I want the meat side to be down and bathing in these foiling juices during the second process. Don't be stingy with the foiling juice. Get it on there. Everything has been, all my ribs have been slathered with my foiling sauce and wrapped in aluminum, and they're all back on the smoker. I'm going to set my timer for 2 hours of this process. This is the 2 part of the 3-2-1. I had some foiling sauce left over, so I'll probably be using that during the 1 process, the final phase of this process, where I unwrap them and put them back on the smoker. So 2 hours here. Now, FYI, I bought in my haste, I bought a 12-inch wide aluminum. Normally I buy 18-inch wide heavy-duty aluminum, and it just makes your life so much easier. So being as I had the 12-inch, I had to wrap and rewrap and rewrap again. So do yourself a favor, get the 18-inch wide aluminum heavy-duty, and you'll be good to go. Now, this is a 2-hour process. This is the time where Jerry would break out the margarita maker and start whipping up some margaritas. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll whip me up a margarita or 2 or 3. No, I better not do that because I'll forget what I'm doing. Okay, I ran out of sunlight, so I brought my ribs inside. Now this is what they look like after that 2-hour smoking process. I'm going to carefully unwrap these ribs, and as you can see, you can tell when they're ready because you see how the meat is moving away from the bone here, and they are fork tender. Look at that. I've already tasted one, so, and trust me, they're amazing. So I think I'm going to put them back on the grill for another 30 minutes or so, not an hour, and that's going to continue. That's going to be my phase 1 of this method. My last and final phase. I just took all of my ribs off of the smoker after the final phase, and as you can see, everything is literally falling off the bone tender. Look at that. This piece here, I might have to QC it. Look at this. Falling off the bone tender. It's good. Okay, my job is done here. Look at those babies. Alright, I gotta go. I think I'm gonna finish off that piece right here. Last night when I finished smoking all of my ribs and I'd made several side dishes and sampled everything, I was too tired and way too full to have anything else to eat, so I'm having my rib dinner tonight. The smoking meat website I subscribed to, when the members found out about Jerry's passing in January, I started receiving emails and private text messages from people from all over the country. One of the emails that really stands out in my mind was from a member by the name of Brooksy, and he writes, "So sorry for your loss. I'll bet that smoke was hitting Jerry up in heaven, and he was telling everyone up there, you smell that? That's my girl smoke right there." Every time I fire up my smoker, I think about this email and I think about my Jerry, whom I miss so much. Make sure you follow me on my new food blog as well as this cooking channel. Thanks for stopping by the Roed to Good Cooking, and I'll see you again soon. Now it's time for me to go and have my rib dinner. Too bad you don't live closer. I'd invite you over. Bon appetit.